For months we have watched Cullum and Sidwell operate with a level of arrogance that borders on the theatrical. Their sinister plot to control the cold fusion prototype has been a dark cloud hanging over everyone. Now that their grand scheme has been entirely exposed to the light of day, they have been backed into a corner. And if my decades of watching this program have taught me anything, it is that a cornered rat is the most dangerous creature of all. Cullum and Sidwell, once operating with their own distinct brands of malice, have now been forced to join forces. This unholy alliance is a terrifying prospect. They are no longer fighting for power or global dominance. They are fighting for their very survival. When villains of this magnitude realize the walls are closing in, they do not surrender gracefully. They decide to take as many people down with them as humanly possible. It reminds me of the days when Caesar or Helena would unleash their final desperate traps. There is no line Cullum and Sidwell will not cross, no innocent life they will not sacrifice to buy themselves another day of freedom. To counter this unprecedented threat, we are witnessing a gathering of forces that feels almost mythical. Jason, Sunny, Valentine, Carly, and the enigmatic Z are standing shoulder to shoulder. Seeing Jason and Sunny align their strategies once again brings a wave of nostalgia that is hard to describe. Their bond, forged in the fires of countless battles, remains the bedrock of their character integrity. They operate on a frequency that no one else can truly understand. Jason, ever the stoic protector, and Sunny, the commanding force who will burn the world down to protect his family, are preparing for a war that feels final. But it is the inclusion of Valentine and Z that elevates this conflict from a mere turf war to an international crisis. Valentine has always walked the razor-thin line between hero and villain, but his love for his daughter has anchored his soul. Teaming up with Z, a figure of immense authority and secrecy, means that this is not just about local territory anymore. It is about neutralizing a threat that could have global ramifications. And then, of course, there is Carly. If you ask me, Carly has never been one to sit on the sidelines and wait for the men to handle the danger. Some viewers find her constant insertion into perilous situations frustrating, but I have always seen it as a testament to her fierce, unyielding spirit. She's a mother lion, and when her loved ones are threatened, her instincts take over. However, stepping into a battlefield populated by the likes of Cullum and Sidwell is a gamble that terrifies me. We have seen her survive kidnapping, explosions, and hostage situations, but the sheer scale of this impending shootout feels different. It feels like a reckoning. Her presence on the front lines alongside Jason and Sunny is a stark reminder of the super couple dynamics and deep-rooted loyalties that have defined this show for over a quarter of a century. The rumors surrounding this final confrontation are enough to make my blood run cold. We are being told to prepare for a massive, chaotic, and utterly devastating shootout. This will not be a neat, strategic takedown. It will be a desperate, bloody fight for survival. Bullets flying, barricades shattering, and innocent people caught in the devastating crossfire. The pacing of modern television often rushes these moments, but I truly hope the writers allow this tragedy to breathe, to show us the terror in the eyes of the characters we have loved for so long. When the smoke finally clears, the landscape of our beloved town will be irrevocably altered. It is widely speculated that this battle will mark the definitive end of both Cullum and Sidwell. On one hand, there is a profound sense of relief in knowing that their reign of terror will finally be extinguished. The canvas needs to be cleansed of their toxicity. But in the world of daytime drama, the death of a major villain is rarely a clean victory. Their demise will not come from a swift stroke of justice. It will be born of chaos, and chaos always demands a toll. The heroes will defeat them, yes, but the victory will taste entirely of ashes. The most harrowing part of this entire ordeal is the predicted body count. 5 people. 5 lives extinguished in a single event. While we can cheer for the downfall of Cullum and Sidwell, the loss of 3 innocent souls is a pill that is almost too bitter to swallow. Let us talk about Turner. Turner has been a figure of authority, sometimes clashing with our favorites, but always driven by a sense of duty. The idea that Turner will die trying to shield someone else from the hail of bullets is a profoundly tragic end. It speaks volumes about the core of who Turner is beneath the tough exterior. To sacrifice oneself in the heat of battle is the ultimate act of heroism, but it leaves behind a void of what could have been. But the loss that truly shatters my heart, the one that makes me want to weep for the history of this show, is Lucas. Oh, Lucas. A true legacy character. To think of Lucas, a healer, a man who has already endured so much heartbreak and loss, rushing into a war zone to help those who are trapped, only to lose his own life. It is almost too much to bear. Lucas represents the continuation of a family line that has been the emotional anchor of this show since the very beginning. His mother fought tooth and nail for him, loved him with a ferocity that defined a generation of viewers. To have him taken out by a stray bullet or a cruel trap set by Cullum and Sidwell feels like a devastating blow to long-term storytelling. It wipes away decades of history and survival. If Lucas truly falls in this battle, the grief will not just be felt by the characters on screen, it will be felt deeply, viscerally, by every single one of us who watched him grow up. And we must not forget young Joe, a rookie full of promise, bravery, and the naive belief that justice will always prevail. Joe stepping into the line of fire to protect his fellow officers is a stark reminder of the human cost of these grand, sweeping storylines. We often focus so heavily on the legacy characters and the titans of the canvas that we forget the collateral damage. Joe's predicted death is a tragedy of unfulfilled potential. A young life cut violently short because the monsters of the world decided to throw a tantrum on their way out the door. It is a sobering reflection on the realities of the violence that often permeates our favorite fictional town. 5 body bags. When the sirens finally fade and the morning sun rises over the wreckage, the silence will be deafening. The heroes will have won, but they will be standing in a graveyard of their own making. Jason, Sunny, Carly, Valentine, and Z will have to look around at the devastation and ask themselves if the cost was worth the victory. How does one recover from seeing a legacy character like Lucas bleed out on the pavement? How does the police force heal from losing Turner and Joe in a single, senseless act of violence? The trauma of this event will echo through the hospital, the local diner, and the lavish estates for years to come. This is the kind of narrative earthquake that shifts the foundation of every single relationship on the canvas. Why do we subject ourselves to this kind of emotional turmoil? Why do we tune in day after day, year after year, knowing that the writers will inevitably break our hearts? If you ask me, it is because these characters are our extended family. We have invited them into our living rooms for decades. We have celebrated their weddings, mourned their losses, and screamed at our televisions when they made foolish choices. The pain of losing someone like Lucas or watching Carly endure another trauma is the price we pay for the deep, abiding love we have for this world. The golden era of soap operas taught us that without the bitter, the sweet has no flavor. The tragedy of this impending shootout will give birth to new stories of resilience, of healing, and of love finding a way through the darkest of nights. Let us take a deeper look at Jason's psychological state in the face of this catastrophe. Jason has always been the shield. His entire existence, his entire purpose, has been defined by his ability to absorb the damage so that others do not have to. When the bullets start flying, Jason's mind operates with a chilling, clinical precision. But the sheer volume of chaos that Cullum and Sidwell are preparing to unleash might be too much even for him to contain. If Jason watches Lucas fall, a man connected to the family that once took him in, the guilt will be an unbearable weight. Jason does not process grief like a normal person. He internalizes it, turning it into a cold hard armor. This battle will test the limits of his endurance and his sanity. And Sunny. Sunny has spent his life trying to control the uncontrollable. He builds empires and fortresses to keep the darkness at bay, yet the darkness always finds a way in. Facing off against Sidwell and Cullum, men who do not respect the unwritten rules of his world, strip Sunny of his usual advantages. He is forced to fight a guerrilla war on his own streets. The potential death of innocent people, especially someone connected to his inner circle like Lucas, will ignite a fury in Sunny that we have not seen in years. But beneath that fury will be a profound, agonizing helplessness. No amount of money or power can reverse a fatal bullet wound. Sunny will have to confront the reality that his world is inherently dangerous, and his presence alone is often a magnet for tragedy. Valentine's journey in this climax is equally compelling. For a man who has spent so much of his life operating in the shadows, manipulating events from afar, being thrust into a visceral, bloody firefight is a stark departure. He is doing this for his daughter, to ensure she has a safe world to grow up in. But if he witnesses the senseless slaughter of people like Turner and Joe, it will force Valentine to reckon with the true cost of the espionage and criminal games he has played for so long. Z, too, will have to answer for the intelligence failures that allowed Cullum to reach this point of desperation. The bureaucratic hands of the agency will be stained with the blood spilled on the local streets. The emotional fallout for Carly will be nothing short of apocalyptic. Carly feels everything at a volume of 10. She loves fiercely and grieves loudly. To stand in the aftermath of a battle that claims the life of Lucas, someone intertwined with her family's deepest roots, will shatter her. We have watched Carly rebuild her life from the ashes more times than I can count, but this loss, compounded by the sheer trauma of the violence, will push her to the absolute brink. I foresee scenes of agonizing sorrow, of Carly demanding answers from a universe that seems intent on punishing those she loves. It is in these moments of profound grief that the true caliber of an actress is revealed, and I have no doubt we will be moved to tears. Let us visualize the terrifying reality of this impending confrontation. I imagine the setting will be dark, claustrophobic, and suffocatingly tense. Cullum and Sidwell, realizing that their grand illusions of wealth and power have evaporated, will likely barricade themselves in a location that forces the heroes into a fatal bottleneck. The tactical disadvantage for Jason, Sonny, Valentin, Carly, and Z will be immense. Every shadow will hide a threat. Every corner turned could mean instant death. The sheer auditory assault of a prolonged firefight will create a sensory nightmare that strips away all the glamorous veneers of their usual conflicts. This is raw, unfiltered, desperate violence. When Turner makes that fateful decision to step into the line of fire, it will not be a calculated move. It will be pure, unadulterated instinct. The instinct of a protector. We have watched Turner navigate the complex moral gray areas of this town, often bound by rules that men like Sonny and Jason effortlessly ignore. But in that split second, when a bullet is meant for an innocent, all the rules vanish. Turner's sacrifice will be a blinding flash of pure heroism, a moment that demands absolute silence and respect. The tragedy is that this town desperately needs people who still believe in the shield, who still believe that some lives are worth dying for, and then the unimaginable horror of Lucas. I must pause just to gather my thoughts when I think about the sheer cruelty of this predicted outcome. Lucas is a healer. His hands are meant to save lives, to stitch wounds, to bring comfort to the dying. For him to be caught in this maelstrom of destruction because he refused to abandon those who were trapped is a poetic yet profoundly sickening tragedy. Imagine the scene. The smoke is thick, the gunfire is relentless, and amidst the chaos, Lucas is desperately trying to apply pressure to a wound, refusing to leave a victim behind. And then the fatal strike. The long-term storytelling implications of this are staggering. The reverberations will tear through the hospital corridors, devastating his colleagues and his family. The legacy of his mother, the enduring strength she passed down to him, will seem momentarily eclipsed by this senseless act of violence. The fall of Joe, the young rookie, compounds this overarching theme of innocence destroyed. Joe represents the future, the bright-eyed optimism that is so often crushed by the cynical realities of our town. When Joe throws himself into danger to protect his teammates, he is acting out the very definition of brotherhood. But the veterans like Jason and Sonny will look at his lifeless body and see the ultimate failure of their world. They will see a young man who should have had decades of life, love, and family ahead of him, reduced to collateral damage in a war he barely understood. Let us also consider the psychological unraveling of Cullum and Sidwell in their final moments. These are men who operated with a terrifying superiority complex. They believed they were the smartest people in the room, untouchable architects of a new world order driven by the cold fusion prototype. To watch their empire crumble to dust, to see them reduced to cornered animals lashing out blindly, will be a masterclass in the deconstruction of the villain archetype. Their deaths will not be glorious. They will be messy, desperate, and ultimately pathetic. But the damage they leave in their wake will elevate them to the highest echelon of the show's most destructive antagonists. The aftermath of this July climax will require a monumental shift in the narrative pacing. The golden era of soap operas understood that grief cannot be rushed. You cannot simply bury 5 people and move on to the next scandal by Tuesday. The writers must honor the character integrity of everyone involved by allowing them to mourn. We need to see the empty chairs at the diner. We need to hear the silence in the hospital break room where Lucas used to smile. We need to watch Carly stare blankly out the window, her fiery spirit temporarily extinguished by the weight of the bodies. We need to see Jason sitting in the dark, haunted by the faces of those he could not save. This is where the true art of the daytime drama lies, not in the explosion, but in the long, painful, beautiful process of picking up the shattered pieces. Let us reflect on the involvement of Z in this catastrophic climax. Z has always been the ultimate wildcard, a figure cloaked in authority and operating with a mandate that supersedes local law enforcement. For Z to be on the ground, weapons drawn alongside the likes of Sonny and Valentine, illustrates the absolute severity of the threat posed by Cullum and Sidwell. Z is a Katadan accustomed to commanding from behind a desk, moving agents like pawns on a global chessboard. But the cold fusion plot has brought the war directly to the doorstep. If Z survives this bloodbath, the psychological toll of watching local citizens die to clean up an intelligence mess will be a heavy burden to carry. The agency's failure to contain Cullum before he allied with Sidwell will be a stain on Z's pristine record. Finally, we must acknowledge the sheer bravery of the writers if they truly execute this storyline as predicted. In an era where television often plays it safe, choosing to eliminate a legacy character like Lucas, alongside a beloved authority figure like Turner and a promising rookie like Joe, is a monumental risk. It is a creative gamble that will undoubtedly spark outrage, tears, and passionate debate among the viewers. But is that not exactly why we watch? We crave the intensity, the stakes, the feeling that anything can happen and no one is truly safe. This bloodbath will be a testament to the enduring power of long-term storytelling. It will remind us that our emotional investment in these characters is real, and the pain of their loss is a reflection of the joy they have brought us over the years. As we brace ourselves for this monumental and devastating climax, I find myself taking a deep, steadying breath. The landscape of our cherished show is about to be painted in shades of profound sorrow and irreversible change. The loss of 5 lives, the end of 2 villains, and the tragic sacrifice of heroes like Lucas, Turner, and Joe will leave scars that may never fully heal. Yet, despite the impending heartbreak, my devotion remains absolutely unshaken. I will be right here, watching every tear fall, honoring the legacy of the characters we lose, and holding on to the hope that from this immense tragedy, a new dawn of storytelling will eventually rise. We have weathered countless storms together, my friends, and we will weather this one too, united in our enduring love for the drama, the passion, and the people of this extraordinary world.